Today on the show, I've got Ann Minooka, who serves as the Chief Marketing Officer at Synopsys, overseeing corporate branding, communications, and digital marketing. With a wealth of experience in the semiconductor industry, Ann has focused on driving results and enhancing corporate brand strength, transforming digital marketing through data driven insights, and cultivating effective collaborations. On the show today, we talk a lot about Synopsys and how they're driving the semiconductor industry forward, what that means in terms of how they market their solutions, how marketing is changing through the use of AI, and how she decomposes that and making sure that she has a sharp edge on business results. We also have a lot of fun conversation around talking about her hiking experiences and her vehicle that she's been building as well. So that and much more with Ann Minooka. Are you ready to go beyond the basics of marketing? I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond, where I chat with the world's leading chief marketing officers and business innovators to share ideas that spark change and inspire you to challenge the status quo. Join us as we explore the future of marketing and its endless potential. Well, Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ellen. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. So, one of the things we love to do is just to get to know you really fast off the cuff. And I heard that you have some amazing hiking excursions all around the world. I wonder if you tell me about a couple of them.
Yeah. So actually, I've always loved the outdoors, living a good, active lifestyle. So hiking wasn't actually my first passion. So I was really started off as a cyclist. So did a lot of cycling, and then about 10 years ago, I got into a near fatal accident where I collided with a car and I flew over the handlebars and landed on the other side of the car. So that kind of stopped me from cycling. While I was recovering from all my injuries, I picked up hiking and
Wow.
I just fell in love with it. So I do a lot of hiking on weekends, long hikes, hike the Grand Canyon. So that was fun. Just right before I joined Synopsys 2 years ago, I did a big hike, a 2-week hike in the Dolomites in
Wow.
Italy, which was just an unforgettable experience. So I've decided that I want to do a big hike every year. So this year, my target is Machu Picchu. So
Wow.
looking forward to doing that. I just think that being in nature really helps me to decompress and just enjoy the life's simple pleasures, right? So one thing that we're doing a couple of years ago, we built a custom expedition vehicle in Europe. It's built on the chassis of a military truck. So it's this
Mm.
giant 12-ton beast.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like it's about 12 to 13 feet in height, and it's equipped with solar panels, water filtration system, satellite connectivity, and we even have all the bells and whistles of a modern home, if you will, with a heated floor and everything. So we love it, and we go off road, and so we can actually go off grid for 2 weeks at a time without any problem. So it's just really wonderful to be in nature with nothing but you and nature and trees. So I love that. So talking
Uh,
about hiking, so one of our goals to drive this vehicle to Patagonia and do a big hike there. Granted, this vehicle is like goes at the maximum of 60 miles an hour, so it would take months for us to get there. So I guess I have to wait until I have time to really have the leisure to really
right.
do a adventure. So I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, it's like a storybook every time you tell a little bit more. So the car accident, I mean, sounds dramatic. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful you're here today to tell this story. And the places that you're going to hike are amazing. And then this off the grid vehicle.
Yeah.
You put all those things together and it's almost unbelievable.
I mean, I think, like for me, I'm really into nature. So just
Mhm.
anything that can get me to close to nature makes me happy. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I will share a little nugget. It's not as grand as anything that you're doing. Now I have a new bar to go try to attain, but my wife and I, for probably 3 months now, we've been walking every Sunday, like,
Mm,
many
yeah.
miles,
Yeah.
and it's been really just fun, like, sometimes it's in the woods, sometimes it's just around town, but, long, long, long walks, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing, so
It's really great way to kind of decompress and relax and start your day with lots of energy. So,
yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome, that's awesome. Well, from hiking, I'm gonna transition us to career. You are the CMO at Synopsys. Where did you get your start in your career, and how'd you end up at Synopsys?
So my career actually back really from the very beginning, I was really my career goal was to become a doctor. Well, actually, more like my mother's career goal for me was to become a doctor because she was a doctor. And so I started off in college doing pre med, but I was always interested in sciences. So I took on I also completed a degree in computer science. Ended up going to medical school and then I realized I really did not like it. I couldn't stand blood. I did not want to jab anybody with the needles. I'm like, this is not a career for me. So a few months into medical school, I quit and I ended up becoming a software engineer for a year.
Mm,
And I did okay, but it wasn't really like a passion of mine. One thing I realized from that 1 year as a software engineer is that I was not detail oriented or patient enough to be a good engineer. And then I realized I spent more time chatting with people than sitting in front of the computer doing what I was set to do. And I decided, okay, maybe marketing is a better career for me. So I ended up going to MBA, and then that's how I started my career in marketing. So the first job in marketing was in semiconductors. I had no idea about semiconductors, but my first job was in semiconductors doing a branding for the company. And that role started to evolve from a regional role to a more global role. And then also, so all the companies that I worked for, with the exception of one, got acquired, not including Synopsys. So all these roles, which is interesting because it allowed me to learn about different companies. So every time we get acquired, I learn about a new company, learn about a new way of doing things. We understand a little bit more about the semiconductor industry. And then the last few companies, the four companies, I had this similar situation where we had a new CEO, they had a new vision, they have a new business strategy.
mm,
And so I was fortunate enough to work with these CEOs to reposition the company and to engage with a much broader audience or new customer audience. And so that had been a very a great experience. So coming to Synopsys, I was hired 2.5 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. Time flies so fast. And so at the time, Sassine, our CEO today, he was going to become the CEO, right? So he
mm,
needed help from marketing. He wants to be able to tell his vision for the
mm,
for the new the company, and so wanted to do rebranding. And so that's why I was hired on to do. So the first thing I did coming into the company was repositioning of a
mm,
Synopsys brand and defining the company's corporate narrative. What is our story? And
mm.
so that's how I started on this journey.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, many of my listeners may or may not have heard of Synopsys, so I would love if you could help us understand what Synopsys does and how you work in the semiconductor industry today.
Yeah. So Synopsys is we are the engineering solutions leader in terms of silicon design and system design. So think about anything that has a chip in it, whether it's a car, whether it's a mobile phone, whether it's a medical device, they most likely they are designed with Synopsys tools.
Yeah.
So Synopsys started 40 years ago. Actually, in fact, this year is our 40 years anniversary. So in the in 80s, Synopsys pioneered the synthesis software. What it is really a design compiler. So before that happened, the design engineers had to manually design every piece of a silicon,
Mm,
piece of a chip manually, very labor intensive process. And so the design compiler synthesis software allows the engineer to shift lots of the manual work to be done more automated through software. This was a big deal because imagine so the first commercially available processor in the 1970s had 2,300 transistors on the chip. But if you think about today's advanced chips, they have, like 80 billion transistors, right? You think about without a Synopsys technology, those things just cannot happen, right? So
right.
Synopsys really has helped to push the industry forward in way of, building advanced chip faster to allow us to do a lot more technology innovation. So that's from the chip design perspective. And of
Mhm,
course, now we have integrated AI capability into our own tools that allow our customers to do a lot more, right? In terms of design the chip. The other thing that we've done is providing pre-designed IP building blocks. And so lots of times there are certain features like memory blocks, interface modules, we provide them pre-designed, pre-validated. So engineers don't have to design them from scratch, right? This
mm,
allows them to reduce risks because these are tested, validated, allow them to build their products faster and reduce costs. And so Synopsys is number one in terms of the software EDA, electronic design automation tools, like I talked about, for chip design.
mhm.
We're number two in IP. So we are really consequential in the whole semiconductor design ecosystem. Now, fast forward, now we have Ansys. You've heard of our Ansys
Yeah.
acquisition, right? It's one of the biggest acquisitions. And so, what that does is, as you think, especially today, if you've gone to CES, you hear all about physical AI, right? You have
Mhm,
these robots, you have these flying taxis, and you have all kind of sort of physical AI devices that are being shown there. So we're now in this era of physical AI. When you think about designing a physical AI or this, we call them intelligent systems, right? They're
mm,
very complex, right? So they all have chips. They definitely are based on chips, but there's also kind of mechanical, other software functions for this thing to do what it needs to do. How do you bring them together? And that's really complex, right? So that's where, like, in order for the physical AI product to be uh, done with the least cost and be successful, like you need to use simulation because you want to
right.
simulate these products before they go to production. You
Mm,
want to make sure they work before they go to production. So this is where ANSYS comes in, right? So ANSYS does physical simulation and analysis. So the acquisition of ANSYS expanded Synopsys business from silicon design to
mm,
system design. And
mm.
so we now have the entire portfolio that allows customers to design not only the chips, but the entire systems.
That's amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm kind of struck by the complexity of the business, to be honest. I mean, it's like if you this is my layman's term, so apologies if this is not appropriate, but it's almost like you put in a melting pot software like CAD with building blocks with your pre-designed components, and now you can simulate all of that stuff in terms of how
Yeah.
it's all going to work together with
Yeah.
larger systems,
Yeah. And also like these physical AI products, not
right?
only all the components working together, also in the real world. how
Mm.
do they interact with the real world, right? So, when you have a flying taxi, what happens when the air pressure drops? What happens when it
Oh,
rains?
wow.
When it's
Yeah.
super cold? And also, how do they all interact with each other in the real world environment? And so, simulation will help you with engineers and think through all of these different challenges.
Yeah. Well, with all that complexity and, like, the technical depth of what Synopsys Solutions does, like, what does marketing look like at your company? You talked about repositioning and,
Mhm.
repositioning it early on, but, like, how does marketing come to life?
I think marketing, yeah, we are a really highly technical business. Our products is really deep tech. I think marketing is more of a bridge between engineering and the market. So inside of the marketing organization, I have this core product and solutions marketing team that they're deeply technical. They work closely with engineering and product management to kind of translate that technology into value propositions that customers care about, right? And then we have a brand and creative team, communications and content team would take that content and then create derivative contents that appeal to the various target audiences. Because we all know, different audiences have different care abouts, right? So the
Mhm.
engineers care about whether this product you have has the right feature for me to do what I need to do, design my product. The technical executive care about might be, do I have all the right technology to complete this product in time and on budget, etc. And so investors have different care abouts. And so these communications team and content team, they will create the right content for each of the target audiences. And also we need to understand the type of format that these audiences like to consume and where they actually go and read these contents. So, the marketing of these content, the creating of these contents for the various target personas is what they do. And then we have a field marketing team that works hand in hand with the sales team to really reach the target customers in all the different regions. And
Mm.
so I think one part of the our marketing team that is becoming increasingly critical to us is our MarTech team.
Mm.
So especially in today's world, right? We all talk about AI, how do you implement AI into the process so that it allows the team to be more efficient. But more importantly, we live in such a digital world where there's lots of intense signals. So this team really like brings all the data from different kind of platforms together to analyze the customers' behaviors, like where they've visited our website, which piece of content they've read. Then we can bring all these insights together to help us make more informed decisions about what kind of content that is more relevant and what kind of campaigns we should run. I think that this team, that kind of data insight really help us to change how we do campaigns from more broadly approach anybody that we think might be that be interesting or to more precise targeting.
Right.
And so
Right.
so that team is very important. Fundamentally, I think my belief is maybe it's because of my engineering background is that everything we do needs to be data driven and need to be measurable, right? So
Mm.
if something is not measurable, it's very hard to tell if it has any impact, right? So with the Martech team and building out the data, different data collection, data analytics, it allows us to measure each of our marketing programs by quantifiable metrics. So what we're getting to is for the marketing programs, we can understand the lead quality from these
Mm.
campaigns. We can understand how much of pipeline expansion we've achieved. We can understand how many new customers we acquired. And
Right.
so that's kind of where I'm taking the marketing team to is to instead of being a cost center, be a more of a strategic business partner that provides a strong impact on the business
Mm,
output.
yeah. One of the things that I mean, I love the notion of content and marrying that with data and martech, and then also the stuff you're doing to connect into the sales cycles, if you will,
Hmm.
and make sure that all of that is being measured and optimized, if you will, as you go forward. I've been thinking about that in terms of like what I would call like a content supply chain, right? Like
Hmm.
you got all of this material that needs to flow through, but you've got to have the right data, you got to have the
Yeah.
right people, you got to have the right process, and then you got to have the right
Hmm.
technologies. To your point
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
do you think about it like that, or because it is almost an optimization problem to get each one of those components operating at the same level?
I think of it marketing almost as a always from an outcome standpoint, right?
Hmm.
Where we were trying to go, what do we need? Is start with where we're trying to go, what is the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve, and then work backwards as to what we need. And
Yeah.
then every step of the way we measure, right? So certain contents you can decide, you run something, you realize, oh, this webinar with a customer together to talk about a solution attracts a lots of attention,
Right.
but
Right.
actually yield lots of leads. We should do more of that, right?
Mm,
If you just write a piece of content that is, just talk about something that somebody else has already talked about, it's not getting any traction. You have to wonder, is this the right topic we're discussing? Or
mm,
is it the right kind of format, right? So maybe we need to do less of that. So there's a lot of analysis going on. So I
mm.
think I probably talk to the MarTech team and then demand generation team on daily basis. Where are we with this one? What are we seeing? And that helps us is to tune our campaign. So I have to say that coming to for many of the deep tech companies, semiconductor companies, is also a mindset change. I think when
Mm,
I came to this organization, even the previous companies too, the way the marketing was run was we have a product campaign. Okay, we're going to do pay search. We're going to do a blog post, et cetera, et cetera. And then the results that we get is we got X millions of impressions. We get this, like, I mean, does it really matter? Right. So I
right.
think it really need to get down to what is the tangible business outcome. But yeah, I'm able to expand the sales pipeline by X million dollars. So what we've seen from a demand generation is that the pipeline that we were able to generate, we're doing it in a smaller scale. Hopefully we'll do it in a bigger scale in the future. But we can see the conversion rate from the expansion, the pipeline opportunity to close one is quite high. We're
Mm,
also seeing that, we're able to engage with a lot more new customers. I think this from in today's age is that's very important because you have so many new companies that are innovating, right? So many companies that are maybe they weren't on our target before and they should be. And so we're able to uncover a lot of these new opportunities.
I love that. Well, you almost can't mention anything today without mentioning AI. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how AI is changing marketing for you and the team.
So I think AI is changing marketing in so many different ways. From the campaign standpoint, I said, I mentioned it earlier, we used to be, okay, here is the type of persona, the kind of company we want to, let's just go after them. And then we will promote, our product and solutions based on the funnel strategy, right? You first and send them content about that is help them to increase awareness, and then you give them more detailed content so that help them to be more interested. They will consider our solutions, and then eventually they become sales qualified leads. But lots of times in today's world, the customers don't think that way anymore because there is so much information available out there, and so they just go and they don't necessarily go through this sort of the journey, if you will, right? So the journey
Mhm.
is a little bit randomized. And so you have to, and the AI allows us to understand lots of the intent, customer intent, where help us to see where they are by their based on their search behavior, by their content consumption behavior. Then we can be more targeted with our
Mm,
campaign and with our campaign dollars too, right? So that also help us to be more efficient with how we spend our campaign dollars. And so more position in reaching customers is one of the key benefits from the campaign
mhm,
standpoint. The other is you think about from the customer experience standpoint. When the
mhm,
customers come to the website, their expectation is they don't want to do a lot of clicks and see where they want to go. They expect you to feed them the information that they want to see, right? And so, which means this hyper personalization, reconfigure that requires you reconfigure the website on the fly. For example, if we see a customer that is looking at automotive content, right? And then you look at
mhm,
where they are, what companies they're in. We have to make the judgment, say, oh, this is a automotive customer. The next time when they come to the website, instead of sending them to the homepage, what they see is the automotive specific content, right? And
mhm,
the third time they come in, we say, oh, they've seen this piece of content already. We need to serve them a different content. So you kind of have to rethink about your web design, your web strategy to be a more one-on-one, offers a one-on-one customer experience
mhm,
than in the past. And then along the same vein is how you think about making sure that your website is surfaced when people are
right,
looking for information. So in the old days, we just need to focus on SEO, search engine
mhm,
optimization, right? You guys search and you send people email promotions with a link to our website. So that was the old days. But today, many customers, instead of searching for something, they're really asking with the, in the prompt, right? How do I do this and that versus looking for a specific keyword. So all of that kind of um, implies that we need to think about our content's web design differently because the AEO, or answer engine optimization, they really they benefit companies that really have more structured data, right? So you
mhm,
have to think about when you create content, almost need to think about how people would ask. What is the prompt
right,
that they might use to ask that? So there are lots of considerations. I think it's making web design and content development for website a lot more challenging and
mhm,
complex, right? There are also other different sort of uh, credible sites that you have to consider. In the past, we never thought about do we need to be on Reddit? Well, we never did anything on Reddit. But now with AEO, YouTube is very important, Reddit is very important, and Wikipedia. So you have to think about different kind of social media platforms that also you need to consider in sharing your content. So that's that, and of course, implementing AI in what we do, right? So in
right,
my team, every function is using AI in some ways. One is really as a way to augment our human experts with AI. So we use AI to generate first draft press releases. We use AI to do competitive analysis, summaries, and use AI to write campaign briefs and all that. So we're doing all of that. But I think for us to become much more efficient users of AI, we have to think about how to build AI into the whole marketing workflow. And so,
mhm,
AI will actually work, all the different AI of tools will work together versus them being point solutions. But we are getting there. We are kind of, definitely seeing the benefits of AI in our work. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you're doing a lot, it sounds like, and I love the mention of those other information sources out there. You mentioned
Yeah.
Reddit and a few others. because they're also source material for many of those LLMs that we might
Yeah.
be typing our
Yeah.
questions into.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's almost you have to think about, I think old school, you would think about earned media. Well, now, like maybe the new earned media are those platforms, right? Where they
Yeah.
go, or the engines are going
Yeah.
to search for information. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, because they are, considered to be more credible, right?
Mhm.
So I think those are the different platforms we need to consider. But I think still at the end of the day, people are gravitating towards contents that are more like human generated, right? So
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
high quality content, original content, those are still very important. So I think that will still be our focus. Then we just need to consider, well, how do you package this content, in ways that it can be cited more
Mhm.
by all these different other, platforms.
Well, it's been fascinating to hear what you're doing with marketing. At the beginning of this, we got to know a little bit about your hiking passion.
Yeah.
It's also important just to go a little deeper with you. And my favorite question to ask everybody that comes on the show is, has there been an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
Yeah. I can't think of a single experience, but I would say is more the my past experience, the way that I grew up, and it helped to shape who I am today. So I was born in China, and I kind of traveled and lived in many countries. So in that process, got me thinking. I think it helped to give me a global perspective on things.
Mhm.
So I have this tendency anywhere I travel, it's like I pay attention to little things like, why is it that in Chinese you can write a letter in red? Why is that? I will ask all the different questions in different countries, why certain things is done certain way. I think it helps me with give me this a broader global perspective and the different cultural nuances that helps with thinking about how to market our products in different regions because something that works in one region might not work in another region. And the
Mm.
other is, even though I wasn't successful as an engineer, but I did give me this very sort of analytical, data driven mindset, right? So I always feel in the past, marketing was always been treated as a cost center. They say, oh, yeah,
Mm.
marketing, it's not really that important. So I wanted to prove them wrong. I want to say, here's the tangible output that marketing can deliver. So in the last four companies, I initiated this data-driven demand generation marketing, and that you
Mm.
could actually measure the output
Mm.
that ties to revenue, ties to pipeline, ties to business impact. So people can see, oh, actually, marketing is important.
Mhm.
So and then I think the other is growing up in a very highly disciplined family. My father was always like, you need to do more, you need to do more. So in our family, we would say, if you get a B, B equals the bad. A equals acceptable. so, and
Oh
so
my
the
god.
mindset is you have to always kind of challenge yourself. And so for me, it doesn't matter how much I've done, like in this past 2 years, my boss, our CEO, has reminded me how much impact our team have delivered to the company in terms of getting our brand out there, you know. So, but for me is past accomplishments are not good indicators of future success. So I feel like I have to always do better, do better next time. So then that kind of, in my mind, I feel like I'm always on probation period in any job. That drives me to think harder, to do something, taking more risk and do more. So I think that kind of all that different background and experiences got to me to where I am today. It really impacted how I think about work and think about, always achieving something more. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Well, what advice would you give that younger Anne
mm,
if you were to, look back and
yeah.
give her some advice?
I think I would tell myself, so one thing I regret about I love, I'm very happy where I am in my career. One thing I really regret is not picking up an instrument,
Mm,
musical instrument. So I dabbled with piano and violin, but I never really kind of, stuck with them. And so I kind of regret. I think in my life, I wish I had mastered some kind of instrument that give me a little bit more a new dimension to creative expression. That's kind of something that for me I would tell my younger self. But as a career advice, I have two kids that just graduated from college, and so what I advise them is, you need to own your own career. So I think for me, as I was growing up in my professional career, I tend to lean on my management to tell me what to do to help me grow my career. But I think as a young person, you need to think about, you know, don't ever be complacent, right? You
mm,
always want to learn more. It does not mean career development, does not mean upward. You have to be a manager, this and that. But I think even like a horizontal growth and learn more about different aspects, even for marketing, different elements of marketing that will help you get better at your job and help you with your career development. So I tell my kids, you need to think about your career in 3-year chunks, right? So, like, where do you want to get to in 3 years? And then every year you think about how far you've gone towards your goal. If you haven't gotten there, maybe you need to talk to your manager about, hey, maybe there's something new I need to try and to help
mm.
me to kind of grow, right? So, that's one big element. The other is really be curious. I think for younger people, the world is moving so fast and just always talk to people, learning, listening, reading. You want to be on the train. You don't want to be left behind when things are moving so fast. I think those would be the advice I have for a younger me.
That's wise advice. Well, as a marketer, what are you trying to learn more about, or what
Mm.
are you trying to learn yourself these days?
Um, I think is there are two things. One is work related, one isn't. So, work related, obviously, there is a huge pressure for marketers to leverage AI to increase productivity, right? So, we see data or consulting firms citing numbers like 30-40% productivity gain in marketing through AI, right? I'm not anywhere near that yet. It's kind of like we need to find a way to get there. So, what I think about is, as I mentioned before, how do you integrate AI into the entire marketing workflow? So, AI tools they're not just the point tools to make it more streamlined in the sort of the marketing system. The second is, how does AI impact the talent requirements or the way that the marketing team is structured? Do we have the right talent? What kind of talent is actually needed today?
Mhm,
And then also, third is, how do you bring the team along on this journey, right? So now everybody is interested in, lots of marketers, they just take pride in the way that they create, the storytelling, and or the how great a writer they are. But
mhm,
everybody has to learn leveraging AI in their work. How do we bring the whole team along on this journey so that people feel that they are keeping up with the modern way of doing marketing? And marketing is done differently now too, right? We mentioned
mhm.
earlier lots of the platforms where people used to get their answers weren't ones that we cared about or we paid attention to. So we have to kind of constantly monitor the customers' behaviors, right? So what their content consumption behaviors to fine tune our messaging, the way that we do marketing. So yeah, so I think more like the AI impact on marketing, all the
Hmm.
different elements,
Yeah.
how I want to make sure that we are staying ahead of the curve, not as a follower.
And you mentioned something on the, and maybe you touched on it already, but you mentioned there was a personal thing that you're trying to learn more about too.
Oh, yeah. So personal thing, I think that in today's environment, it's a very stressful environment, right? So things are
Yes.
moving so fast. Whether is from the technology standpoint, from the geopolitical standpoint, everything is just there's very. I sometimes can feel a little bit more chaotic, if you will. So I've been trying to practice. Meditation, right? So, it's not something like I'm not a very uh, patient person. So, but that's something I realized that I need to kind of find new ways to recharge and block all the noise. And
Right.
so I do, things like try to practice meditation. I do yoga to help me calm. I go in nature. And so try to do more of that to kind of make sure that I'm mentally sort of, you have to mental resets. You definitely
Yeah.
need to do that from time to time.
Yes. Yes, you do. And that it's
Yeah.
a dizzying pace that the world is moving at
Yeah.
right now too.
Yeah.
Well, I have two last questions for you. First, are there any trends or subcultures that you follow or you think people should take notice of? I'm really curious about what you're curious about going on in the world.
Yeah, what I'm curious about, there are a couple of things I'm super curious about. One is I have this debate, as you know, when I go hikes, I go with a group of people, and I actually, this particular friend of mine that we often debate a lots of various things. So one thing that we both kind of paying attention to is this the concept of, up until now, intelligence has been a scarce resource, right? Which makes it so highly valued. But now
Mm,
with AI, intelligence is becoming more abundant and accessible, right? What does it mean to does it mean that the human intelligence will lose value? What is the sort of the relationship between humans and AI in the future? And so this actually got me to where I say I wish I had learned the instrument before. I feel like in the future, the human creativity will become much more important. The emotional intelligence,
mhm.
the human creativity, it will become more important. So I pay a lot of attention to any kind of research and discussions on this topic. It's just very curious of what's going to happen to us, you know, 10, 20 years down the road. The other topic is also not work related, is all about space exploration, space colonization, space tourism. And I read about this startup that actually created refueling station in space, right? Like a gas station
Mm.
in space. And then there's also the talks about building data centers in space, right?
Mhm.
So that is super fascinating to me. Not that I have any answers, but I pay attention to this topic a lot. Yeah.
Well, you're on your path with that truck that you have that can go off
Yeah.
grid for 2 weeks, right? Like, now you just need to figure out how to make it space worthy.
I
Yeah,
don't know if I want to go into space. It doesn't look, I mean, it doesn't have the nice trees and the flowers. And yeah,
that's
I
true.
think I'm probably going to stay on Earth.
Well, my last question for you, what do you think is either the largest opportunity or potential threat facing marketers today?
Again, this definitely is like back to AI, right? I think
Mm,
we all nobody has the right answers today to say nobody. I don't. There's a very few companies that say we have the best practice. We know everything about AI in marketing. I think we just need to lean in, be curious, and try to adapt to using AI, learning how to use AI. Without it, I think. It's not a matter of whether you should or should not use AI. I think you have to. You have to embrace it. You have to get on board with this. And this is the really the biggest opportunity and also the biggest threat to any marketers.
Yeah. Well, Anne, it's been fascinating conversation. I've learned a lot and I need to up my game in my hiking pursuits, but to hang with you. But thank you for coming
Yeah.
on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Alan.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Beyond is a Deloitte digital podcast. It's created and hosted by me, Alan Hart, and produced by Sam Robertson. We have even more cutting-edge marketing insights headed your way. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our latest episodes. I love hearing from listeners. Share your thoughts about the episode, the topic covered, or the show by commenting on this video or emailing me at marketingbeyond@deloitte.com. If you're interested in more conversations with industry visionaries, we invite you to explore other Deloitte Digital podcasts at deloittedigital.com/US/podcast. There you'll find the Marketing Beyond webpage with complete show notes and links to what we discussed in the episode today. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Deloitte. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and does not imply endorsement or opposition to any specific company, product, or service.